Aha, I'm live. Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, one, two, three. Look, we've got a little green light for the sound machine. That's good. We're on a wee moment early, folks, just to see that everything's working okay. If anybody's out there in YouTube land, say hello if you can hear me. Pardon me. We're supposed to go last night with our Children of Dune book club, but the work got me swamped, I'm afraid. So we decided better to go with tonight because we ended up having to look up loads and loads and loads of biblical references in this chapter. And it's a really important chapter, so we just wanted to make sure we were kind of getting the gist of things. So we'll just wait for 9 o'clock to say hello, folks. There it is, it's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's Dr. Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, where I'm hosting our Children of Dune book club. Waha, there we go. And we're very nearly at the end. It's chapter 62 tonight. Hugely important chapter. It's where, pardon me, a lot of our tensions and actions come to a head. A lot of plans, etc., either, well, succeed or fail here within this chapter. And we also have the death of two of our major characters in what is quite a tragic chapter. There's Bojack Harkness saying hi there. Hi, Bojack. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Pardon me. So yeah, this is one of the lengthier chapters in the book. So it brings quite a few things to a conclusion. It really could be seen as a fair part of the conclusion of the book. But like a lot of the Dune series, it's the Dune series is actually quite anticlimactic, I think, deliberately so. So after this, as much as the action, etc., is resolved, good guys win, bad guys lose, that kind of thing. There is a little bit more to go in relation to the intrigue after this, but it's a really important chapter, as I said, and it's pretty much where the plans that are still surviving, I suppose, for want of a better term, that have been put into action politically and, pardon me, even militarily, come to a head. And we get to find out a few things as well. So, yes, indeed, here's our epigraph just to start with. So, epigraph number 62, the child who refuses to travel in the father's harness. This is the symbol of man's most unique capability. I do not have to be what my father was. I do not have to obey my father's rules or even believe everything he believed. It is my strength as a human that I can make my own choices of what to believe and what not to believe, or what to be and what not to be. And this is from Leto Atreides, the second, the Alia biography. Oh, let me scribble that in. Actually, I've left that out for some reason. Leto Atreides the second, and this is the Alia biography. Right, there we go. That was clumsy of me. Right off from the back there. Simply put, I suppose that this epigraph here, we don't have to be what our father is, this kind of thing. From Leto's point of view, he's not going to be Paul. He's not going to be the same thing. He's going to be completely different. I don't have to be what my father was, and I do not have to obey my father's rules or even believe everything he believed. It's my strength as a human that I can make my own choices of what to believe and what not to believe, of what to be and what not to be. It kind of echoes a little bit, if you just pick out the words, the to be or not to be speech in a funny kind of way. Which, in a sense, is from Hamlet's point of view, I suppose, whether he's going to, live or death, life or death, etc. But it's whether whether he avenge his father, this kind of thing. But it's a very interesting point because of the society that's set up in the Dune universe, which is the five Falush system. So the general sense of a feudal society like that is that if your father is a painter, you will be a painter. If your father is a duke, you will be a duke. If your father is the emperor, good chance you might be the emperor, this kind of thing. And so as much as Leto might say such things, his father was the emperor, he'll be the emperor. In some ways his father was exquisite, in some ways so is he. So there are similarities between the two. But in particular, when we're talking about this, the child who refuses to travel in the father's harness, this is the symbol of man's most unique capability, I suppose. Mankind, humanity is what we're talking about. Pardon me. But as I said, it's interesting because that's what we have in the Dune universe. The Five-Falush system is a feudal society where generally you will be accepted into the profession that your father is, that kind of thing. And the one character who is the example of someone who bounces in and out of that system with relative ease is not here in this chapter. For the reason that we're told, I want Gurney to survive. It's Gurney Halleck. So it's an interesting thing. I suppose my dad actually wanted me to be a policeman. I was having none of it, no way. So yeah, a little comment about traveling in your father's shoes, this kind of thing. We all have to find our own way in life, don't we? Right. There's Cynthia saying, hi, Doc. Hi, all. Hi, Cynthia. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, we're just getting started here tonight. As I had to go for Friday night tonight. Just with the amount of scribbling for this chapter, it took me a wee bit more longer to do. So we have a fair bit of a whole chunk of Bible references to have a wee natter about tonight as well. But right, let's get going. I mean, there's so many things in here I think that is very interesting. The other thing that I'll point out is, I suppose, is that the conclusion really of this chapter, and ultimately the chapter 64, perhaps, or this chapter and the following two chapters. We should think of it as this is where Frank was going. The whole time, I suppose. Bojack's saying, just your typical coming of age story, laughing out loud. Yes, indeed. Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that whose story is this? If you see what I mean. But yes, indeed, if we go all the way back to the beginning of Dune, Dune is sorry, my brain went away there. Well, Dune's a buildings room, as you point out, a coming of age story, and we have that again. We kind of also have Alia kind of coming of age within Dune Messiah, and then here, I suppose, even though they're a little young, we have the coming of age of Leto and Ganima, and to a degree Farad'n as well. Just your typical coming of age story. Yes, indeed. So here we go. Pilgrim women were dancing to drum and flute in the temple plaza, no coverings on their heads, bangles at their necks, their dresses thin and revealing. Their long black hair was thrown out, then straggled across their faces as they whirled. Alia looked down at the scene from her temple eyrie, both attracted and repelled. It was mid-morning, the hour when the aroma of spiced coffee began to waft across the plaza from the vendors beneath the shaded arches. Yes, indeed, I've made a big mistake there. I've written the word twice. There we go. I'll just read that again. It was mid-morning, the hour when the aroma of spiced coffee began to waft across the plaza from the vendors beneath the shaded arches. Soon she would have to go out and greet Farad'n, present the formal gifts, and supervise his first meeting with Ganima. So that's the plan, anyway. Well, as we get here, it was all working out according to plan. Ganima would hang on. Oh, sorry, that's my appalling handwriting has just defeated me there. Sorry, Ganima would kill him, and in the shattering aftermath, only one person would be prepared to pick up the pieces. The puppets danced when the strings were pulled. Stilgar had killed the Garveys just as she'd hoped, and Agarves had led the kidnappers to the Jadida without knowing it, a secret signal transmitter hidden in the new boots she'd given him. Now Stilgar and Irulan waited in the temple dungeons. Perhaps they would die, but there might be other uses for them. There was no harm in waiting. So, yes, indeed. Now we know what's happened to Agarves. We were having a wee chat about this the last time. The results of what the result would be of breaking rules of hospitality. It's clear that what's happened is that Ganem has been kidnapped. He's been used as a stooge, basically by Alia, who's provided him with a lovely set of new boots in which she's hidden a transmitter, had him followed. They've grabbed Ganema. And the result is that obviously I think that Stilgar would have seen him as a traitor and has killed him. So this is another one of Alia / the Baron's lovers being killed by Stilgar. And very interestingly, I've just I've given Bureau Garvez his own little skull. There we go, up at the top. And very interestingly, I've just put down that we have clothing used as a trap again. And again, if we remember how the Laza Tigers go after the twins is actually through their new clothes. A gift from House Carino, isn't it? So a similar method here of deception, clothing. I've also made a wee note that most of the people who die in this book are Fremen, I think, on the whole. Here we go. She noted that the town Fremen were watching the pilgrim dancers below her, their eyes intense and unwavering. A basic sexual equality had come out of the desert to persist in Fremen town and city. But social differences between male and female already were making themselves felt. That, too, went according to plan. Divide and weaken. Alia could sense the subtle change in the way the two Fremen watched those off-planet women and their exotic dance. I kind of thought that some of that didn't read very well. A basic sexual equality had come out of the desert to persist in Fremen town and city. But social differences between male and female already were making themselves felt. That, too, went according to plan, divide and weaken. Alia could sense the subtle change in the way the two Fremen watched those off-planet women and their exotic dance. It's something around the two Fremen there. The two Fremen, it seems like it needs an extra word or something like that. Bojack Harrison, I have hair thrown straight out. Small difference in my text says something that their long black hair was thrown straight out. Right, okay. What did I have? Sorry, I thought I thought you were making a joke there for a minute, Bojack, and then I saw Cynthia's comment below, thinking that's gone over my head. Sorry, no pun intended. Let's have a wee look. That's the dancers, isn't it? Where are they? Long black hair was thrown out, then straight out. Let's see. Yep, hang on. That's probably me again. Oh yes, that's me. Thank you. I've just missed the word straight. Got you. There we go. So their long black hair was thrown straight out, then straggled across their faces as they whirled. Thank you very much. I could use quotes to make it less confusing. Oh, don't worry, Bojack. Always figured out anyway. Confusion with me is part of me. I get confused here sometimes no matter what, so I wouldn't worry about it. We get there in the end. Christopher Crowley. Hi, Christopher said, I could see Leto writing a romance novel titled Would You Still Love Me If I Was a Worm? A worm that turned. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Would you still love me if I was a worm and you were my sister? Is where it would get even worse. Thank you very much for that, folks. Alia can sense the subtle change in the way the two Fremen watch those off-planet women and their exotic dance. Oh, Bojack saying that's funny. I don't know. I think I actually looked that up. I think that's the same in both versions. So there you go. I just thought that little bit there at the end. I would have put the two Fremen groups watch those off-planet women and their exotic dance. So we get Alia's thoughts here. Let them watch. Let them fill their minds with Gafla. So Gafla, I think we've had before, from the Arabic Gafala, is neglectful, unaware, indifferent, inattentive, and within Islam it is forgetfulness or the lack of mindfulness of God. So let them fill their minds with Gafla, let them be distracted. So the louvers of Alia's window had been opened and she could feel a sharp increase in the heat which began about sunrise in his season and would peak in mid-afternoon. Yeah, and this I've got his season there, by the way, which began about sunrise in his season. It should be this, I'm hoping. Oh my God, where's that in the book? In his season. Sorry about that. So I'll just read that again. The louvers of Alia's window had been opened and she could feel a sharp increase in the heat, which began about sunrise in this season and would peak in mid-afternoon. Cynthia saying, I wonder if there's a typo in our text with the two Fremen, as the earlier sentence in the paragraph sounds town Fremen watch the dancers. Use town Fremen in both instances. Could be that as well. Yes, indeed. Where the two Fremen watched. Since the subtle change. Fremen town and city. Between male and female. Yeah, could be. It's a tricky one, isn't it? I'll scribble that one down. Thank you, Cynthia. Use town Fremen in both the town Fremen watch those off-planet women and their exotic dance. Yeah, that would make sense as well. So it's either a typo with the word two, maybe town or something like that, or a word missing. Let me just quickly check here. Let's have a wee quick nosy. I'm pretty sure I did look it up. I'm doing this over a few different days. Unfortunately, I'm not overly fond of doing that. Right, let's see what's the. Let's see. There's a good word there to find this. I'll look for Gaffa. 4 times in the book, right? Gadfly distraction. All right. Right, let's have a wee look here. Time frame we're watching the pilgrim dancers below her, the eyes intense and unwavering. A basic sexual quality had come out of the desert to persist in Fremen town and city, but social differences between male and female already were making themselves felt. That, too, went according to plan. Divide and weaken. Alia could sense the subtle change in the way the two Fremen watched those off-planet women and their exotic dance. That's what I have in this edition as well. Yeah. There's something about it, isn't there? Yeah, possibilities. Could be town Fremen again, could be the two Fremen groups, something like that. A missing word. Who knows? Right, okay, let's do so let's one more time. The louvers of Alia's window had been opened and she could feel a sharp increase in the heat which began about sunrise in this season and would peak in mid-afternoon. The temperature on the stone floor of the plaza would be much higher. It would be uncomfortable for those dancers, but still they whirled and bent, swung their arms and their hair in the frenzy of their dedication. They had dedicated their dance to Alia, the womb of heaven. An aide had come to whisper this to Alia, sneering at the off-world women and their peculiar ways. The aide had explained that the women were from Ix, where remnants of the forbidden science and technology remained. So that's a interesting little point. And again, I suppose a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come in God Emperor, if you like. But Ix, we often get these little comments about Ix within the book, don't we? Alia sniffed. Those women were as ignorant, as superstitious, and backward as the desert Fremen. Just as that sneering aide had said, trying to curry favour by reporting the dedications of the dance. And neither the aide nor the Ixians even knew that Ix was merely a number in a forgotten language. So I've often speculated on X, number 9, of course, in Latin. Sorry, in Roman numerals, apologies. I always thought that the one thing that it was possibly Pluto, if you see what I mean, or else just simply it's the 9th planet of a particular solar system, you know. But it's always the same reminder, isn't it, about X, that it was once just a 9th planet, you know, another name for once just a number in another language, this kind of thing. So I suppose it's a little bit of internal knowledge there. Laughing lightly to herself, Alia thought, let them dance. The dancing wasted energy, which might be put to more destructive uses. And the music was pleasant. A thin wailing played against flat timpani from gored drums and clapped hands. Sorry. I'll read that again. And the music was pleasant. A thin wailing played against flat timpani from gored drums and clapped hands. Pardon me. Abruptly, the music was drowned beneath a roaring of many voices. Sorry, I'll read that again. Abruptly, the music was drowned beneath a roaring of many voices from the plaza's far side. The dancers missed a step, recovered in a brief confusion, but they had lost their sensuous singleness, and even their attention wandered to the far gate of the plaza, where a mob could be seen spreading onto the stones like water rushing through the open valve of the Quanet. Alia stared at that oncoming wave. She heard words now, and one above all others. Preacher! Preacher! Then she saw him striding with his first spread of the wave, one hand on the shoulder of his young guide. That doesn't sound right at all. Let me have a wee quick look. Striding with his first spread of the wave. Yeah, that's what I've got. Then she saw him striding with his first spread of the wave, one hand on the shoulder of his young guide. And we know that to be Leto, don't we? If things are going according to plan. The pilgrim dancers gave up the whirling, retired to the terrace steps below Alia. They were joined by their audience, and Alia sensed awe in the watchers. Her own emotion was fear. And we get her thoughts here. How dare he? She half turned to summon guards, but second thoughts stopped her. The mob already filled the plaza. They could turn ugly if thwarted in their obvious desire to hear the blind visionary. Pardon me. I got thinking a wee bit about Paul as a prophet, the blind prophet, etc. Maybe I scribbled down Tiresias, the blind seer from Greek mythology. Maybe think of him a little. Alia clenched her fists. I get her thoughts here. The preacher. Why was Paul doing this? To half the population, he was a desert madman and therefore sacred. Others whispered in the bazaars and shops that it must be Muad'Dib. Why else did the mad in it let him speak such angry heresy? Oh, sorry. I just fixed something there. Question. There we go. Hmm. Hang on. Let's see. That's a good point. Cynthia makes. So they're saying earlier in the text, Alia was tempted by the Ix technology. Now the Ixian dancers are tempting the pilgrims in a different way. And then Cynthia's also saying my text has striding with the first spread of the wave. Yeah, that's something not quite right there. Where are we? Striding with it. Yeah, and she saw him striding with the first. Yeah, that would make much more sense. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've got his. Yeah, yep. Where we go? That makes much more sense. Thank you very much. I have with the Thank you, Bojack, as well. I have with the first spread of the wave. Yeah. Where are we? Oh, I'm getting better at this. Hang on. There we go. Can you see it? Focus. His first spread. Yeah, there's a few in this that just I don't think there's anything major in terms of howlers. Well, there's one actual big howler in this chapter. But most of the rest of them, I think, are little minor things, minor fluffs like that. Thank you very much. Where do we get to? Alia clenched her fists and get her thought. The preacher, why was Paul doing this to half the population? He was a desert madman and therefore sacred. Others whispered in the bazaars and shops that it must be Muad'Dib. Why else did the madman let him speak such angry heresy? Alia could see refugees among the mob remnants from the abandoned sieges, their robes in tatters. That would be a dangerous place down there, a place where mistakes could be made. So we've got refugees amongst the crowd from basically the various sieges, and Jadidas that Leto has been attacking. There's a mob down there. They get the sense of the fear of the mob, fear of the crowd, fear of that's dangerous down there. This is Mistress. This is Zia. The voice came from behind Alia. She turned, saw Zia standing in the arched doorway to the outer chamber. Armed house guards were close behind her. Yes, Zia? My lady, Farad'n is out here requesting audience. Here? In my chambers? Ooh. Yes, my lady. Is he alone? 2 bodyguards and the lady Jessica. Alia put her hand to her throat, remembering her last encounter with her mother. Times had changed, though. Now conditions ruled their relationship. How impetuous he is, Alia said. What reason does he give? He has heard about... Zia pointed to the window over the plaza. He says he was told you have the best vantage. Pardon me. By who has one? Jessica, most likely. Do you believe this? Sorry, Alia frowned. Do you believe this, Zia? No, my lady. I think he has heard the rumors. He wants to watch your reaction. My mother put him up to this. Quite possibly, my lady. Zia, my dear, I want you to carry a specific set of very important orders for me. Come here. Let me just check that as well. Carry a... That doesn't quite... Zia, my dear, I want you to carry a specific set of very important orders for me. I've got the feeling that that's missing a word there, like as an out, as in I want you to carry out a specific set, but alas, it's not there. Zia, my dear, I want you to carry a specific set of very important orders for me. Come here. Zia approached to within a pace. My lady, have Farad'n, his guards, and my mother admitted. Then prepare to bring Ganima. She is to be accoutred as a Fremen bride in every detail. Complete. With knife, my lady? With knife. my lady, that's, I suppose the word that's unspoken there is dangerous. Ganima poses no threat to me, but not to Farad'n, I suppose. Again, my lady, there's reason to believe she fled with Stilgar more to protect him than for any other. See ya, my lady. Now, I think that's quite funny. So I'll just go on there quickly. Ganima has already made her plea for Stilgar's life, and Stilgar remains alive, but she's the heir presumptive. So I just thought that a little bit there, my lady. There's reason to believe that she fled with Stilgar more to protect him than for any other, and being cut off. And I think that's quite funny if you think about it. This 10-year-old ran off with Stilgar to protect him from you, not the other way around. The suggestion is that we need, that Ganem is more dangerous than Stilgar. That's the thing that we all need protecting from, Cynthia's got out. Thank you. I figured that one. It had to be. It just didn't. It just seemed. Doesn't make quite sense, does it? It is out indeed, missing from mine. Thank you very much. Let's figure out where that is in the book. I'll put it in. I'll put it in. Well, I'll put a wee arrow pointing into it on my notes here. Carry out. There you go. That's where you belong. Thank you. Bojack saying same. Thank you, guys. So I just thought that was quite funny that Ganima was fled with Stilgar to protect him rather than the other way around. And I think we're going to get a sense of that again within this chapter, that we also know that Jessica's here with Farad'n, again, to protect him, not the, these very, very dangerous Atreides women, one of them being a child, So the fact that Zia's saying, but she's the heir presumptive, is that this person at this point is, probably going to be the Empress, and we should be, at some point, she'll be in charge. And the suggestion is we shouldn't be that bad to her, should we? I think there. And that Farad'n, by that thinking, could end up being her regent, or even Stilgar, not Alia. So this is Alia again. Just carry out my orders. Have Ganima prepared. While you're seeing to that, send 5 attendants from the temple priesthood out into the plaza. They're to invite the preacher up here, have them wait with the opportunity and speak to him. Nothing more. They are to use no force. I want them to issue a polite invitation. Absolutely no force. And Zia, my lady, how sullen she sounded. The preacher and Ganima are to be brought before me simultaneously. They are to enter together upon my signal. Do you understand? I know the plan, my lady, but just do it together. And Alia nodded dismissal to the Amazon aide. As Zia turned and left, Alia said, on your way out, send in Farad'n's party, but see they're preceded by 10 of your most trustworthy people. Pardon me. Just need to check something here. Oh, all right. Right, where are we? 31. Yeah, that's me. See they. Oh. See they're preceded by 10. 10 of your most trustworthy people. Yeah, sorry, I'd left out a little bit there. Just the apostrophe RE on the they there on there. So the idea really with Alia's plan is to have both the preacher and Ganima presented into this room where Jessica and Farad'n are going to be at the same time. And the wee note that I've made here is basically that Alia plans to aim them at each other. She plans to aim Ganima at Farad'n and aim Paul, the preacher, at Jessica, who at this point believes herself, well, probably not, but most likely believes that he's possibly dead still. So that, yeah, to use the the disruption, the chaos, whatever of those arrivals, those meetings, Ganima will just basically try to kill Farad'n. Jessica will have to protect Farad'n. How would Paul behave? What's going to happen in that situation? It sounds like a sort of a right old recipe for disaster, doesn't it? Zia glanced back but continued leaving the room. It will be done as you command, my lady. Alia turned away. Oh, sorry, before we go any further, let me get some fluids here. So these 5 priests. Okay, a while back, let me just grab my notebooks from behind. We had a bunch of Thomas Becket references. This is why. I suppose the culmination of that. Let me just quickly check where this notebook begins. Oh, no, need an older one than that. Let's go. That's volume 2. Right, so the first of those would have been chapter 35. The first of those Thomas Becket references. Let me just get them for you. So I suppose it's interesting when we get epigraphs and little references to something that eventually comes about. We tend to forget that we've kind of had a bit of a natter about this kind of stuff beforehand. Right, bear with me. Chapter 37, 36, chapter 35, notes. Number 38. Oh, it's page 250. Sorry, in this book. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. But I've got it for you here. If you bear with me a second, let me just put that one down. Notes number 30. Yeah, way back. This is when Leto was on his way, I think it is, to Jacurutu, where he crouched. Let me just see. Yes, indeed. I'll give you this wee bit quickly. Leto crouched in the lee of his dune and waited for the night to settle into its own rhythms. Patience and caution, caution and patience. For a time, he amused himself by reviewing Chaucer's route from London to Canterbury, listing the places from Southwark. 2 miles to the watering place of St. Thomas, 5 miles to Deptford, 6 miles to Greenwich, 30 miles to Rochester, 40 miles to Sittingbourne, 55 miles to Bowden-on-Blean, 58 miles to Harbledon, and 60 miles to Canterbury. It gave him a sense of timeless buoyancy to know that few in his universe would recall Chaucer or know any London except the village of Gansery. St. Thomas was preserved in the Orange Catholic Bible and the Azhar book, but Canterbury was gone from the memories of men, as was the planet which had known it. There lay the burdens of his memories of all those lives which threatened to engulf him. He had made that trip to Canterbury once. So that was a whole Thomas Becket, basic Lord Chancellor, 1155 to 1162, Archbishop of Canterbury. From 1162 until his death in 1170, was assassinated in Canterbury Cathedral. So that was the re-reference there way back. And then the other one very quickly was from chapter 49, which is a different notebook, bear with me. And that's that's the epigraph there. I think I have written here, it's page 320 in my book. Bear with me. Where are we? 40. Oh, there we go. 49. Yes, when this is the epigraph from chapter 49. This was later on mirrors at Sherlock, the caster. Which of you of the Chome Directorate seem unable to understand? Sorry, what you of the Chome Directorate seem unable to understand is that you seldom find real loyalties in commerce. When did you last hear of a clerk giving his life for the company? Perhaps your deficiency rests in the false assumption that you can order men to think and cooperate. This has been a failure of everything from religions to general staffs throughout history. General staffs have a long record of destroying their own nations. As to religions, I recommend a rereading of Thomas Aquinas. As to you of Chome, without nonsense you believe. What nonsense you believe? That's the wrong guy. Sorry, hang on. I've given you the wrong one. That's Thomas Aquinas. Oh, I've looked up the wrong Thomas. Bear with me. Sorry, that's a completely different thing. The first one was correct, that there was one of the references. I've grabbed the wrong Thomas out of my notes. I do apologize. The first one, I've gone and used the word Thomas there and thought I found the same guy. The good thing is that's okay. I was just reading you that from that. So no, ignore that second note. Apologies. That was about Thomas Aquinas. The first one was about Thomas Becket being murdered. You know, who will rid me of this troublesome priest? This kind of thing. We get that kind of reference here again. I'm sorry, so it's not chapter 49. Let me just rub that out. That's rubbish. That's easily fixed in my notes. Apologies, folks. So these five priests, these are going to be the assassins. Right, let's see, where do we get to? Okay. So Zia glanced back but continued leaving the room. It will be done as you command, my lady. I've also scribbled here very quickly, just with they're coming to look at her reaction, etc., to what's going on here. There's a few Shakespearean references in this. I put at the top of this. I thought that there were elements of the mousetrap in this chapter. For those who don't know, aren't familiar with it, the mousetrap is the play within a play. In Hamlet, the play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. That's the one. And it's I suppose a performance of a murder very similar to that of his father's, and it's a thing that Hamlet kind of uses to see how his wicked uncle, how he reacts to this. If you like, it's something similar here, I think, with Farad'n and Jessica coming in to see how Alia reacts to the performance of the preacher. So let's see. Alia glanced back but continued leaving the room. Sorry, Zia glanced back but continued leaving the room. It will be done as you command, my lady. Alia turned away to peer out the window. In just a few minutes, the plan would bear its bloody fruit, and Paul would be here when his daughter delivered the coup de grace to his holy pretensions. Alia heard Zia's guard detachment entering. It would be over soon. All over. She looked down with a swelling sense of triumph as the preacher took his stance on the first step. His youthful guide squatted beside him. Alia saw the yellow robes of the temple priests waiting on the left, held back by the press of the crowd. They were experienced with crowds, however. They'd find a way to approach their target. The preacher's voice boomed out over the plaza, and the mob waited upon his words with rapt attention. Let them listen. Soon his words would be made to mean other things than he intended, and there'd be no preacher around to protest. That's quite, doesn't matter what he says. Soon enough, the sense of propaganda and manipulation of language by those in power there, the arrogance of it, doesn't matter what he says. We'll take it and turn it into something else, Quite spooky. And really sort of Alia slash the Baron, if you like, I think is on the cusp of their I don't know, their evil genius plan coming to fruition, a spate of booming guffaws to follow, this kind of thing. She heard Farad'n's party enter. Jessica's voice. Alia? Without turning, Alia said, "Welcome, Prince Farad'n. Mother, come and enjoy the show." She glanced back then, saw the big Sardaukar Tyekanik scowling at her guards who were blocking the way. "But this isn't hospitable," Alia said. "Let them approach." Two of her guards, obviously acting on Zia's orders, came up to her and stood between her and the others. The other guards moved aside. Alia backed to the right side of the window, motioned. This is truly the best vantage point. Jessica, wearing the traditional black Abba robe, glared at Alia, escorted Farad'n to the window, but stood between him and Alia's guards. So I have a wee note next to this that she is his bodyguard as Ganima was Stilgar's in a way. This is very kind of you, Lady Alia, Farad'n said. I've heard so much about this preacher. And I made a wee note there that there's deception in that statement, isn't there? But it's also a truth, if you see what I mean. A very Bene Gesserit thing to say, I thought. And there he is in the flesh, Alia said. She saw that Farad'n wore the dress grey of a Sardaukar commander without decorations. He moved with a lean grace which Alia admired. Perhaps there would be more than idle amusement in this Corrino prince. So that's the Baron taking an interest in the young Prince Farad'n there, I think. Also, I think the dress without decorations, I think, is similar to the idea that the Corrinos were trying to kind of emulate the Atreides in their mannerisms, if you like. There's no whole bunch of medals. He's a young man; he wouldn't have earned anything like that, and it seems to emulate, if you like, ideas of like Duncan Idaho and Leto I. Not, the simple uniform, no decorations, this kind of thing. The preacher's voice boomed into the room over the amplifier pickups beside the window. Alia felt the tremors of it in her bones, began to listen to his words with growing fascination. Carry out a specific set. Yeah, same. Okay. Here we go. There's a howler there. I'm going to get some fluids, folks. Can anybody guess what it is? If there's any musicians in the room or watching, sorry, I'm in the room. I'm the musician in the room. Does anybody want to know what the outrageously bad scientific and technological mistake is in this passage? If there's any musicians out there, I'm sure you've all just done a double take. I thought I'd give you a second. I'll read it again for you. The preacher's voice boomed into the room over the amplifier pickups beside the window. Alia felt the tremors of it in her bones, began to listen to his words with growing fascination. So before we get cracking, amplifiers do not have pickups. Pardon me. Amplifiers have speakers. Instruments have pickups. My Gibson Nighthawk Special there has a single coil pickup, double coil pickup, and a humbucker pickup, which is quite nice. Got all three. There's other ones like lipstick pickups and stuff like that. But yeah, amplifiers don't have pickups. I'm wondering about that. Is that some kind of bizarre mistake? Is that, just a simple little bit of ignorance or something like that? I don't think Frank Sunday is music much, by the sounds of it. So, but there you go. And just as a musician, I have there we go, folks. Amplifiers do not have pickups. Oh, Frank, you've done it again. Sorry, it just paid me a little bit, that one. So no harm done though. So here we go. This is the preacher kicking off with the final sermon that he's going to deliver. I've got a whole ton of Bible references coming up for you folks. I'm not too sure whether to deal with them one at a time or yeah, I think that might be best. But just to show you, within the oh, can you see that? Within the Bodom preacher's speech, that's what we've got. And I'm assuming, by the way, I think I might have missed a couple of references here. There's all sorts of biblical references that have been taken and weaved into this narrative over the preacher's speech. I've got ones, let me see, going from books of, let's see, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Psalms, Leviticus, Ezekiel, Hosea, Exodus, Habakkuk, Deuteronomy, Job, Matthew, Revelations, Jeremiah, and it looks like we even have possibly a reference to the speech of Calgacus, which is from Tacitus is Agricola, I believe. So we'll run through them as we get to them. I suppose I think might be the best way to deal with them. They're all of a certain ilk. In fact, actually, I've got more than that lot. I've not included the first one because I've referenced it on its own here. Pardon me. Right, here we go. So this is the preacher. Okay. I find myself in the desert of Zan, the preacher shouted, in that waste of howling wilderness. And God commanded me to make that place clean, for we were provoked in the desert and grieved in the desert, and we were tempted in that wilderness to forsake our ways. Now, this is going to be the first of them. But yeah, again, I've written it over here. You'll not see a single exclamation. Am I right? Not a single exclamation mark in there. Pardon me. I would point out that the preacher shouted. That it's booming. We're going, and this is going. This is going to be a thing here. I'm just writing it down here, but I've written the comments about this. That honest to God, with the amount of exclamation marks that Frank Herbert throws into this book, with a full on of bangaria, that actually where we should be having them, they're non-existent. So we should have. He's being a bit shouty, big, loudy, loudy. And that's where you want your exclamation marks, isn't it? So the desert of Zan, with reference to Psalm 78, verses 40 to 41. And I'll just give you those two. So verse 78, 40 is how often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. And yes, again, this is 41. Yes, again and again, they tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. So we've got the desert of Zan is actually the desert of Zin, which is also known as the desert of Sin, which is also the wilderness of Zin. Sin in this case is not as in not how did you put it? Not the immoral kind of sin, that kind of thing. Instead, it's the Hebrew name for a particular region, Sin. S with the wee arrow over the I and the N. And this is, I believe, the place that the Israelites wandered in for making their God unhappy. Basically, for now, I've put in here, see Wikipedia. Let me just bring this up. No, the Zin Desert, just on Wikipedia, it says the wilderness of Zin, that's with a Z, or the desert of Zin. Hebrews, Midbar Sin, is a geographic term with two meanings, one biblical and one modern Israeli, which are not necessarily identical. So the biblical deserts, the desert of Zin is an area mentioned by the Torah as containing Kadesh Barnea, references Numbers 27:14 and Numbers 33-36, and is therefore also referred to as the wilderness of Kadesh. The desert of Sin, similarly named as the wilderness of Sin, it says modern English translations make a distinction, but it's not easily evident from the Septuagint and the Vulgate, which, apart from a couple of instances, render both Hebrew sin and shin as sin. The wilderness of Sin is mentioned by the Bible as being adjacent to Mount Sinai. Some, it says, citation needed, who considers Sinai to refer to Al-Madba at Petra, adjacent to the central Araba. And it is thus eminently possible that the wilderness of Sin and the wilderness of Zin are the same place. Blah, blah, blah. As of 1899, most scholars, as well as traditional sources, identified the wilderness of Zin as being part of the Araba. Loosely defined geographic area south of the Dead Sea drainage basin, north of the Gulfs of Aqaba in southeastern Israel and southwestern Jordan. It's a region known to T. Lawrence. It says there, important bird area, blah, blah, blah. Let me see, sorry. Wilderness of Sins. Mentioned, right, the wilderness of sin is mentioned. There we go, folks, by the Bible as being one of the places through which the Israelites wandered during their Exodus journey. That's what we're after. Similarly, in the wilderness of Zin is also mentioned by the Bible as having been a location through which the Israelites traveled. The biblical narrative states that on reaching the wilderness of Sin, the Israelites began to complain of the lack of food as they had already consumed all the grain they had brought with them from Egypt. According to the account, Yahweh heard their murmurings and so provided them with abundant manna and quail. Later, they left the wilderness of Sin and complained about a lack of water while camping at Rephidim. So these kind of stories are actually kind of relevant to this, and it's going to be a thing that carries on within the sermon by Paul here. Because there's Joseph Smith saying, howdy, Joseph, how's it going? Pardon me. So this is pertaining to the Exodus, if you like, and we get this desert of Zan, Alia thought. That was the name given to the place of the first trial of the Zen Sunni wanderers, from whom the Fremen sprang. But his words, was he taking credit for the destruction wrought against the siege strongholds of the loyal tribes, which is Leto's doing? So that, again, that first trial of the Zen Sunni wanderers, I think, if we follow it all with them properly, pardon me, it does take us back to Earth. To Egypt, I believe. Now, all right, okay, here we go. So we're going to get a chunk of them. More Bible references here. Here we go. Wild beasts lie upon your lands, the preacher said, his voice booming across the plaza. Doleful creatures fill your houses. You who fled your homes no longer multiply your days upon the sand. Yea, you have forsaken our ways. You will die in a foul nest if you continue on this path. But if you heed my warning, the Lord shall lead you through a land of pits into the mountains of God. Yea, Shai-Halud shall lead you. Pardon me. I've written next to this, voice booming and not one exclamation mark again. Now, let's see, just running through these very quickly. The first part of that, wild beasts lie upon your lands, reference to Leviticus 26, verse 22, and Ezekiel book 14, verse 15. Doleful creatures fill your houses. That is Isaiah 13, 21. And at the bottom part of this, the Lord, but if you heed my warning, the Lord shall lead you through a land of pits into the mountains of God. Yea, Shai-Halud shall lead you, is reference to Jeremiah 2, 6. So I'll bring a whole, in fact, I'll bring all of these up as we go. I'll give you the references, because I'm going to bring them up on the screen here, so it'll be a bit easier to actually bring them all up. We're going to go through them all, but I'll give you the references as we go, and then we'll have a look at them pretty much. Pardon me. So soft moans arose from the crowd. The preacher paused, swinging his eyeless sockets from side to side at the sound. Then he raised his arms, spreading them wide, called out, O God, my flesh longeth for thy way in a dry and thirsty land. This is a reference to Psalm 63, 1. An old woman in front of the preacher, an obvious refugee by the patched and worn look of her garments, held up her hands to him and pleaded, help us, Muad'Dib, help us. So that's a direct reference to Muad'Dib, to Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, not the preacher. As the crowd suspect, they do think he is Muad'Dib. So that's him named there. And this causes a response in Alia, a physiological response. Alia, in a sudden fearful constriction of her breast, Alia asked herself if that old woman really knew the truth. Alia glanced at her mother, but Jessica remained unmoving, dividing her attention between Alia's guards, Farad'n, and the view from the window. Farad'n stood rooted in fascinated attention. Alia glanced out the window, trying to see her temple priests. They were not in view, and sorry, I'll read that again. They were not in view, and she suspected they had worked their way around below her near the temple doors, seeking a direct route down the steps. Pardon me. The preacher pointed his right hand over the old woman's head and shouted, "You are the only help remaining. You were rebellious. You brought the dry wind which does not cleanse, nor does it cool. You bear the burden of our desert, and the whirlwind cometh from that place, from that terrible land. I have been in that wilderness. Water runs upon the sand from shattered quanets. Streams cross the ground. Water has fallen from the sky in the belt of Dune. Oh, my friends, God has commanded me, make straight in the desert a highway for our Lord, for I am the voice that cometh to thee from the wilderness." He pointed to the steps beneath his feet, a stiff and quivering finger. Now, just before we go on with that, point at the right hand, agency, power. Let's see. You are the only help remaining. You were rebellious. You brought the dry wind which does not cleanse, nor does it cool. That is Hosea 8:7, I think. I was kind of wondering about that one. We'll check it out in a wee bit. Pardon me. You bear the burden of our desert and the whirlwind. I think that was it. Yes. Cometh from that place, from that terrible land. I have been in that wilderness. Water runs from the sand, shattered quiet systems, blah, blah, blah. My friend, God has commanded me, make straight in the desert a highway for our Lord, for I am the voice that cometh to thee from the wilderness, is Isaiah 43. He pointed to the steps beneath his feet, a stiff and quivering finger. This is no lost Judea, which is no more inhabited forever. Here have we eaten the bread of heaven, and here the noise of strangers drives us from our homes. Thy breed for us desolation, a land wherein no man dwelleth, nor any man pass thereby. Now that wee bit just prior to that, no more inhabited, the Judea, which is no more inhabited forever. I thought that was very odd, and I looked it up. That's Jeremiah 50, verse 39 and 40. The noise of strangers eating the bread of heaven, that bit drives us from our homes. They breed us for desolate. It's Isaiah 25:5. Pardon me. And then the breed us for his desolation, a land where no man dwelleth, nor any man pass thereby, is a reference, I believe, to Calgacus' speech. Let me bring this up for you. Let's see, have we got the speech? The speech, by the way, is known as "They Make a Desert and Call It Peace" speech. And it's most likely written by Tacitus. Bear with me a second. Oh, where's my copy? Oh, it's to do with the Romans, basically. I'll just read you this very quickly from Wikipedia. According to Tacitus, Calgacus is chieftain of the Caledonian Confederacy. Pardon me, we're the Scots, who fought the Roman army of Gnaeus Julius Agricola at the Battle of Mons Graupius in northern Scotland in AD 83 or 84. His name can be interpreted and not attested as Brittonic Calgach, possessing a blade, and is related to the Gaelic Calgach, meaning prickly or fierce. Old Scottish Gaelic word calga means pointed finger, while cog means spear. They cast serious doubt on the Brythonic interpretation, whether the word is a name or a title is unknown. So he's the first Caledonian to be recorded in history. There you go. And the only historical source that features in this Tacitus is Agricola, which describes him as the most distinguished for birth and valor among the chieftains. Tacitus wrote a speech which he attributed to Calgacus, saying that Calgacus gave it in advance of the Battle of Mons Graupius. The speech describes the exploitation of Britain by Rome and rouses his troops to fight. Oh, bear with me a wee second. Oh, got it. Here you go. Right, folks. Here's my copy. There we go. I'll just read it to you from this. It'll be much more fun than reading off a screen. I'll give you the full speech before we move on. When I consider the motives we have for fighting and the critical position we are in, I have a strong feeling that the united front you're showing today will mean the dawn of liberty for the whole of Britain. You have mustered to a man, and all of you are free. There are no lands behind us, and even on the sea we are menaced by the Roman fleet. The clash of battle, the hero's glory, has now actually become the safest refuge for a coward. Battles against Rome have been lost and won before, but hope was never abandoned, since we were always here in reserve. We, the choicest flower of Britain's manhood, were hidden away in her most secret places. Out of sight of subject shores, we kept even our eyes free from the defilement of tyranny. We, the most distant dwellers upon earth, the last of the free, have been shielded till today by our very remoteness and by the obscurity in which it has shrouded our name. Now, the farthest bounds of Britain lie open to our enemies, and what men know nothing about, they always assume to be a valuable prize. But there are no more nations beyond us. Nothing is there but waves and rocks, and the Romans, more deadly still than these, for in them is an arrogance which no submission or good behavior can escape. Pillagers of the world, they have exhausted the land by their indiscriminate plunder, and now they ransack the sea. A rich enemy excites their cupidity, a poor one their lust for power. East and West alike have failed to satisfy them. They are the only people on earth to whose covetousness, both riches and poverty, are equally tempting. To robbery, butchery, and raping, they give the lying name of government. They create a desolation and call it peace. That's part 30 of the Agricola by Tacitus. Agricola's Tacitus' father-in-law, isn't he? Yeah. That's a good speech, isn't it? But probably most likely not written by Calgacus at all. Most likely made up by Tacitus. Make his father-in-law look good. Pardon me. Good. Something said, make straight in the desert a highway for our Lord is also a quote by John the Baptist in the New Testament. So Paul acknowledges his secondary status. To clarify, John gave witness to Jesus who came after him, as Paul is now giving witness to Leto. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Pardon me. Let me scribble that one down. Oh, yeah, hang on. I thought I did scribble something like that down. Matt, is it possible? Yeah. We have a few New Testament references there. Let me see. Make straight in the desert a highway for our Lord. Sorry, bear with me a second. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Well, let me make straight in the desert a highway for our Lord. Isaiah. I've got that one's Isaiah 40. That's also a New Testament reference as well. Pardon me. Bear with me a wee second. Is that the Matthew? Is that the reference in Matthew that I got there? No, it's a different one. Ah, well, a voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. So many different variations. I use a website that gives me lots and lots of different versions of it, yeah, so I can tend to run through them. That's Mark 1, column 3. I think that's exactly the one we're looking for. Yeah, I'm going to come to them in a minute. Actually, just once I got through them all, then I was going to I'll keep what's the website we use here? Is it Bible Hub? Is that it? Just has lots and lots of different versions of it. So I was going to run through them there once we get, because I've got loads of them, and it would save me having to keep opening and closing that. Thank you. John gave witness to Jesus who came after him, as Paul is now giving witness to Leto. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Good point, Cynthia. Okay, where did we get to? Oh yes, the no loss to Judah, which is no more inhabited forever. Blah blah blah. I've gone through that wee bit. And here the noise of strangers drives us from our homes. They breed us for desolation, a land where no man dwelleth, nor any man pass thereby. The crowd stirred uncomfortably, refugees and town fremen peering about, looking at the pilgrims of the Hajj who stood about them. So yeah, basically, I've just written next to that. It looks like he's doing a bit of rabble rousing here, almost, that the strangers amongst us. Johnny Foreigner here, it's the pilgrims, isn't it? And you've got refugees here who've been attacked. You've got the town fremen. The refugees have probably lost stuff. And here's these kind of, and again, the amount of wealth it probably takes to go on the Hajj. We figured out previously it takes a lot. It's kind of just going there to blame almost. So not always what I've written here. And we get Alia's thoughts here. He could start a bloody riot. Alia thought, well, we'll let him. My priests can grab him in the confusion. So the potential for violence, I suppose. The thing that we forgot, I think, to mention earlier is that her priests are pretty good at dragging people out of crowds, aren't they? She saw the 5 priests then, a tight knot of yellow robes, working down the steps behind the preacher. And here's our next part here. The waters which we spread upon the desert have become blood, the preacher said, waving his arms wide. Blood upon our land. Behold our desert which could rejoice and blossom. It has lured the stranger and seduced him in our midst. They come for violence. Their faces are closed up as for the last wind of Kralazek. They gather the captivity of the sand. They suck up the abundance of the sand, the treasure hidden in the depths. Behold them as they go forth to their evil work. It is written, and I stood upon the sand, and I saw a beast rise up out of, hang on, I'll read that again. And I stood upon the sand, and I saw a beast rise up out of that sand, and upon the head of that beast was the name of God. Right. So that's a whole pile of them. I think that's most. I've got one more to go again, which is a repeat of another reference. So jumping back, let's see, where do we get to previously? The waters which we spread upon the desert have become blood is a reference to Exodus 7:19-25. Has lured the stranger and seduced him in our midst. Oh no, sorry, hang on, that's the wrong bit. It came from the faces are closed up as the last one. They gather the captivity of the sand. They suck up the abundance of sand. That's Habakkuk 1:9. Oh no, here, hang on. Where's my letter I? They gather up. Let me apologize. I'll do that again. They gather the captivity of the sand. That's Habakkuk 1:9. They suck up the abundance of the sand. The treasures hidden in the depths is Deuteronomy 23:19. And then behold them as they go forth. L, where did I write that one down? JK, hang on. I think I occasionally have missed one, and then, oh no, yes, we've got Matthew 13:44. Going about their evil work is Job 24:5. And then the last part there, and I stood upon the sand, and I saw a beast rise up out of that sand, and upon the head of that beast was the name of God. That should be blasphemy instead of God. And it's Revelation 13:1. So that's a whole ton. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, plus that extra one from the New Testament Cynthia's pointing out, 6, and then one from Tacitus, I think. So very quickly, let's just run through them for you folks. There's Carlos saying, hey everybody, and Julian Thompson saying, hi all, hi Doc, hello guys, how are you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. We're just about to hit a whole quick pile of biblical references for you. Let me see. Let's start off with first one, jumping back a wee bit. Right. So let's see. I think now Frank tends to use the King James version a fair bit. So 13. Our first reference there is Isaiah 13:21. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. In fact, tell you what, let's just grab all of the ones. Hang on, see if this makes life easy. Oh, it does, right. Let's just get all the ones from Isaiah that we had here. Oh, no, tell you what, no, let's not do that. Let's just keep going in order. Sorry. Try not to. Right, our second. 2, 6. Neither said they, where is the Lord that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of the shadow of death, through a land that no man passed through and where no man dwelt. Let's see next. Psalm 63:1. And again, just going with the King James versions here. Psalm of David, where he was in the wilderness of Judah. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. Let's see what have we got next. Leviticus. Bosh. 26:22. I will also send wild beasts among you, which shall rob you of your children and destroy your cattle and make you few in number, and your highways shall be desolate. And that's supposed to go with Ezekiel 14:15. Pardon me. This is a handy wee website, isn't it? If I cause noisome beasts to pass through the land, and they spoil it, so that it will be desolate, that no man may pass through because of the beasts. The one I put a wee question mark next to was Hosea 8:7. Let's have a wee look at that. I wasn't too sure about that one. I wonder why. Let's have a wee quick nosy. Oh yes, it's the Rape of the Whirlwind. Yeah, that's the right one, isn't it? Let's see, what did I think that was? Jumping back. You bear the burden of our desert, and the whirlwind cometh from that place, and that time I have been in that wilderness. Did you? For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. The standing grain has no heads; it shall yield no meal. If it were to yield, foreigners would devour it. Isaiah 4, right? Again, a little bit how would you put it? Xenophobic, perhaps. Let's see, Isaiah 43. Let's have a look at that. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Verse 25. Oh, right, hang on, find a better way of navigating this. Isaiah 25:5. Thou shalt bring down the noise of strangers as the heat in a dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud. The branch of the terrible ones shall be brought low. Okie dokie. We're getting through them, not too many more. Exodus 7, let's have a look at that. Okay. All right, Exodus 7. Okay, this is going quickly. Hang on. Oh no. Oh, for goodness sake. You know, web pages jump and they make you click something that you don't want to click. So nearly there. Exodus 7:19 to 25. I think that covers most of that story. Here we go. King James Bible. The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, take thy rod and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all the pools of water that may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone. It's that. Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of the servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. That goes on a wee bit there, that kind of stuff. I'm not reading the whole lot of that. Habakkuk 1:9. Let's have a look for that. There you go, Habakkuk. They shall come all for violence, their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand. Right, let's see. Deuteronomy. Second laws is what that means. 33:19. There we go. Let's have a look at this. So Deuteronomy 33:19. They shall call people onto the mountain. There they shall offer the sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of treasures hidden in the sand. Our next one is Job. Where are we, Job? Pardon me. Right, Job 24:5. Behold, as wild asses in the desert go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. The wilderness yieldeth food for them and for their children. Oh, there we go. Matthew Bosch. What have we got there? 13:44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, the which, when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. And then, of course, our last one, Revelation 13. Oh no, there's one more. Hang on. Revelation. Ping. The joy of the book of Revelations, 13:1. And then I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having seven heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. There we go. There was one more. Sorry, bear with me very quickly. It was Jeremiah 50, wasn't it? All right. Where's the book of Jeremiah? There you go. 39 to 40. And therefore the wild beasts of the deserts with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the isles shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. And that goes on to as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah along with their neighbors, declares the Lord, no one will dwell there, no man will abide there. That's the next verse. Right, referring to the destruction of Babylon. There we go. So that's a whole bunch. That's all of those references that were in those speeches, folks. Just running through them there. Goodness, I'll be honest with you, because what Frank does is he's taking them from all over the Bible. Though it's in particularly, I think, in relation to God punishing the Israelites, for not behaving themselves, basically. That kind of thing, but he's then incorporated that with a little bit of the Dune world, a little bit of the Orange Catholic Bible, if you like. But that's a whole big dump of biblical references, and particularly here having a go at the strangers, the pilgrims. Looks like it's going to start a bit of a brouhaha perhaps here. So there we go. And the last thing, as part of the speech there that we looked at, was it is behold them as they go forth to their evil work. It is written, and I stood upon the sand, and I saw a beast rise up out of that sand, and upon the head of that beast was the name of God. So Alia's angry muttering arose from the crowd. Fists were raised, shaken. What is he doing? Farad'n whispered. I wish I knew, Alia said. She put a hand to her breast, feeling the fearful excitement of this moment. The crowd would turn upon the pilgrims if he kept this up. But the preacher half turned, aimed his dead sockets towards the temple, and raised a hand to point at the high windows of Alia's eyrie. The spelling of eyrie here did my head in. It's an American spelling, isn't it? I'm not used to it at all. Not if the other eyrie is spooky, but the eyrie with as in eagles, it would be EYRIE here, which is the suggestion of a bird of prey's nest, isn't it? The Atreides hawk, Alia. One blasphemy remains, he screamed. Blasphemy, and the name of that blasphemy is Alia. Shocked silence gripped the plaza. Alia stood in unmoving consternation. Oh, I moved a wee bit down this way, so I'm all over to one side. But like Alia at her window. She knew the mob could not see her, but she felt overcome by a sense of exposure, of vulnerability. The echoes of calming words within her skull competed with the pounding of her heart. She could only stare down at the incredible tableau. The preacher remained with a hand pointing at her window. His words had been too much for the priests, though. They broke the silence with angry shouts, stormed down the steps, thrusting people aside. And they moved the crowd. As they moved, the crowd reacted, breaking like a wave upon the steps, sweeping over the first lines of onlookers, carrying the preacher before them. He stumbled blindly, separated from his young guide. Then a yellow-clad arm arose from the press of the people. A crysknife was brandished in its hand. She saw the knife strike downward, bury itself in the preacher's chest. Now, the wee note that I've made here, first of all, is that Leto II is not here. And the other wee thing I wanted to point out is no assassin's name is known here. If you see, I mean, one of these 5 priests, we don't know whose arm it belongs to. It's a yellow-clad arm out of the press of the people. It's a crysknife brandished by the hand. We get to see the knife strike, bury itself in its preacher's chest, but we don't get to see who wields it, and I think that's very deliberate. And again, this is the priests have had enough here. They've taken the things into their own hands. This is the kind of historical kind of overlay of Thomas Beckett's murder. So that's a very good point. So there's Rolando Sala saying, "Howdy, dog." Hi, Rolando. How's it going? Something that's a very good point. I wonder who wrote this sermon, Paul or Leto, or Leto's inner guardian from the Abrahamic age. That's a good point. Perhaps they even wrote it together. Because they know what they're up to, the Atreides men here, I think. All of this is done for effect. But yes, here we have the assassination of Paul Atreides. The thunderous clang of the temple's giant doors being closed broke Alia from the shock. Guards obviously had closed the doors against the mob, but people already were drawing back, making an open space around a crumpled figure on the steps. An eerie quiet fell over the plaza. Alia saw many bodies, but only this one lay by itself. Then a voice screeched from the mob, "Muad'Dib! They've killed Muad'Dib!" So here is our hero that we've followed all this way, and he's got his own little skull there. And if you can maybe see there, I've put "Rest in peace, Paul Atreides," stabbed by a priest in the chest. And then I've written as many things. He's a warning. He's Paul Atreides. He's Usul. He's Muad'Dib. He's the Emperor. He's the Mahdi. He's something else. He's the preacher. He's the Kwisatz Haderach. He's the shortening of the way. He's the Lisan al-Gaib. He's our hero and possibly a villain. And that's a complex character. But this is this moment. This is our moment. And the other thing is, I don't know if you noticed this, by the way, I've got a little skull right here. And that's just for the many bodies on the ground that we don't know about. That there's been a bit of murder, possibly to get at Paul. Muad'Dib, they've killed Muad'Dib. Oh, I also wrote, by the way, Full Saint there. Which was to be the original title, wasn't it, for Dune, Full Saint. But there's a moment for us, folks. That's quite sad. He's done his bit, though. Leto seems to have been disappeared. He's on his own in the crowd, and he, I suppose, the irony's not lost on us that he's murdered by a priest of his own religion, really. "God's below," Alia quavered. "God's below." A little late for that, don't you think? Jessica asked. Sorry, that was my bad handwriting there. Alia whirled, noting the sudden, startled reaction of Farad'n as he saw the rage on her face. "That was Paul they killed," Alia screamed. "That was your son. When they confirm it, do you know what will happen?" And I've written next that, "Problems." No doubt. They'll probably go to full revolt, I would imagine. Jessica stood rooted for a long moment, thinking that she had just been told something already known to her. Farad'n's hand upon her arm shattered the moment. "My lady," he said, and there was such compassion in his voice that Jessica thought she might die of it right there. She looked from the cold, glaring anger on Alia's face to the sympathetic misery on Farad'n's features and thought, perhaps I did my job too well. That's an interesting comment, isn't it? There could be no doubting Alia's words. Jessica remembered every intonation of the preacher's voice, hearing her own tricks in it. The long years of instruction she spent there upon a young man meant to be emperor, but who now lay a shattered mound of bloody rags upon the temple steps. We get Jessica's thoughts here. Gafla blinded me, Jessica thought. Alia gestured to one of her aides, called, "Bring Ganima now." So this is plan B, I suppose, that she's going to adapt here. Jessica forced herself into recognizing these words. Ganima? Why Ganima now? The aide had turned towards the outer door, motioning for it to be unbarred, but before a word could be uttered, the door bulged, hinges popped. The bar snapped on the door, a thick plasteel construction meant to withstand terrible energies, toppled into the room. Guards leaped to avoid it, drawing their weapons. Jessica and Farad'n's bodyguards closed in around the Corino prince. Again, it's her protecting him. I like this. But the opening revealed only two children. Ganima on the left, clad in her back betrothal robe, and Leto on the right, the grey slickness of a stillsuit beneath a desert-stained white robe. Alia stared from the fallen door to the children, found she was trembling uncontrollably. Right, if you excuse me a wee second, folks, I'm just going to quickly run to the loo and then we'll pick up from there. I'll be right back if anybody's got any comments or questions. Excuse me. Oh. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Brief intermission there. Let's just say smoking if you've got them or something like that, I think. Or play a jingle. Right, excuse me. Yes, indeed. And oh yeah, we're not even. I'd say we're about halfway through. But no, we're a wee bit further than that. Bojack saying, "What a great chapter! So much coming to a head here. Very exciting." Yeah, I mean, we're just already. I mean, we've lost our major protagonist of the series. And reading this probably for the first time, as much as we've kind of suspected about Paul along, this is him actually dead, and it's a big moment, isn't it? And of course, we understand that Paul and Alia are in Janus, aspect within this book that doesn't bode well. And of course, we have Leto and Ganaba, but here we are, our new Janus aspect. They've arrived. The opening revealed just these two children, two 10-year-old children, one clad in black betrothal robe, the other with this new skin and the grey slickness of the does it with his white robe, looking very imperious. And a huge door that's just whoa, been chucked over. This is where things really do change a fair bit as well. Yes, indeed, and we've got a bit more action to go. And here's our psychotic family novel coming to a bit of a head. But Alia stared from the fallen door to the children. I found she was trembling uncontrollably. The family here to greet us, Leto said. Grandmother, he nodded to Jessica, shifted his attention to the Carino prince. And this must be Prince Farad'n. Welcome to Arrakis, Prince. Ganima's eyes appeared empty. She held her right hand on a ceremonial crysknife at her waist, and she appeared to be trying to escape from Leto's grip on her arm. Leto shook her arm, and her whole body shook with it. Behold me, family, Leto said. I am Ari, the Lion of the Atreides, and here. Again he shook Ganima's arm with that powerful ease which set her whole body jerking. Here is Alia, the Atreides lioness. We come to set you on Secher Nabawi, the golden path. Now that's the trigger phrase, isn't it? Secher Nabawi. Always a problem trying to figure out how to pronounce that in Nabawi. It made me think a little bit of, I'm not too sure about the etymology of the Nabawi word. Secher, I think, is dry. Made me think of Niobe, all tears for some reason. But that's, there we go. That's the phrase that's going to trigger the return of Ganima's actual personality. And we have, behold me, I am Ari, the Lion of the Atreides, and Alia, the Atreides lioness. So Ari and Alia are both Hebrew male names, interestingly enough. They're both masculine, and they both mean lion. And we also, I suppose, the Lion of the Atreides, possibly a reference to the Lion of Judah, which I believe is a symbol of that tribe, but also it's is a symbol of Jesus, I believe, as well. So here, and lions, I suppose, are also animals of imperialism. It's lions and eagles generally, isn't it? And you'll see the British lions, the three lions for England, the English football team, etc. 3 lions on their shirt, that kind of thing. Alexander the Great is the Lion of Macedon, not the eagle, if you see what I mean. Pardon me. And possibly a little bit of a suggestion as to the Abraxas type being that Leto's going to eventually become. Right. So, Ganima. So we've heard this phrase then. We come to set you onto Secher Nabawi, the golden path. If anybody's got any other suggestions on pronouncing that, by the way, I'm open to them. Ganima, absorbing the trigger words, Secher Nabawi felt the locked away consciousness flow into her mind. It flowed with a linear nicety, the inner awareness of her mother hovering there behind it, a guardian at a gate. And Ganima knew in the instant that she had conquered the clamorous past. It's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? The multitude, in other words, the clamorous past. She possessed a gate through which she could peer when she needed that past. The months of self-hypnotic suppression had built for her a safe place from which to manage her own flesh. She started to turn toward Leto with the need to explain this when she became aware of where she stood and with whom. Just Oh, I hear some doggies coming back in after a walk. So, is it only in this? She knew in that instant, by the way. This is the moment where her personality is returned, but that it's worked somehow, that she's been able to conquer the as we put it, the clamorous past, the multitude. She's safe from abomination. She's safe from possession. She's figured something out. The months of self-hypnotic suppression had built for her a safe place from which to manage her own flesh. And the very interesting thing, I suppose, from that place, the person, her gatekeeper, her guardian there, is Chani, who I get the sense seems a lot more powerful in other memory than others, I think. Leto released her arm. Did our plan work? Ganima whispered. Well enough, Leto said. Recovering from her shock, Alia shouted at a clump of guards on her left, "Seize them!" But Leto bent, took the fallen door with one hand, skidded it across the room into the guards. Two were pinned against the wall, the others fell back in terror. Poor guy, that's a bit harsh. Sorry, I just wanted to check. But Leto bent, took the fallen door with one hand, skidded it across the room into the guards. Yeah, that's fine. Two were pinned against the wall, the others fell back in terror. That door weighed 0.5 metric ton, and this child had thrown it. Now, I will be, in all honesty, point out that this is kind of where my suspension of disbelief gets a little bit problematic, with the 10-year-old Leto throwing around doors that weigh 0.5 ton. And I get it, and I just to say I'm happy to suspend my disbelief, and that's it really for me. But it's where does the character become a little bit problematic for me? For me, it would be here. But at the same time, I love science fiction. I love Dune. Who cares? It's part of the story. Let's move on. Flaccid House said, "Evening all. Ooh, arrived at a good part." Yes, indeed. So I've also given the two guards who were killed here their own little skull. I'll just quickly read this bit before. Alia, growing aware that the corridor beyond the doorway contained fallen guards, realized that Leto must have dealt with them. That is, that this child had shattered her impregnable door. So a couple of wee skulls up there. There's the two guards who've just been pinned to the wall. I consider them dead. If you've been pinned to the wall by a 0.5 ton door, I don't see you surviving it. And then we have where are we? Oops. This one just for all the guys in the corridor who are dead. Fallen guards is what I've called that one. Don't know how many, unfortunately, because we like to keep a wee tally of this, don't we? Yep. Dealt with that this child had shattered her impregnable door. Yeah, it should have them worried, shouldn't it? This kind of behavior in a preteen, if you like, a teenager. Jessica too had seen the bodies, seen the awesome power in Leto, and had made similar assumptions. But Ganima's words touched a core of Bene Gesserit discipline, which forced Jessica to maintain her composure. This grandchild spoke of a plan. What plan? Jessica asked. I think that's quite funny in the middle of all of this. It also shows you, again, some of her discipline, some of her composure here, which isn't going to last, I think. This is Leto. The Golden Path, our imperial plan for our Imperium, Leto said. He nodded to Farad'n. Don't think harshly of me, cousin. I act for you as well. Alia hoped to have Ganima slay you. I'd rather you lived out your life in some degree of happiness. Now, just to be clear, by the way, if we want to know what the Golden Path is, on all sorts of levels we can go into that question, but fundamentally we're told what it is here. It's their plan for their Imperium. It's the plan. You know, the golden path. I've always often thought, you know, as much as we go into the details of Kralazek and all of this kind of stuff, I've often thought from Frank's point of view that the golden path is whatever, you know, whatever excuse, whatever story that any given dictator or leader sells the public, you know, this kind of thing is part of their thing. You know, the example of I suppose, you know, things like Hitler's 1,000-year Reich, this kind of thing, you know, all of the kind of Aryan myths that go with that. Don't know why anybody ever bought that stuff. So Alia screamed at her guards cowering in the passage, "I command you to seize them." Now, by the Lord of Hells, here sit Glorious Maximus. Oh no, this case it's my fault. Sorry, I was about to have a go at Frank for dropping out exclamation marks again, but this one was my mistake. I command you to seize them, but the guards refused to enter the room. "Wait for me here, sister," Leto said. "I have a disagreeable task to perform." He moved across the room toward Alia. She backed away from him into a corner, crouched and drew her knife. The green jewels of its handle flashed in the light from the window. And we've talked about colours within the Dune series. Leto's cape, his cloak is white. It's the colour of death, is what he's bringing here. Green is the colour of life within death, within the Dune series. We often get the points of action, particularly things like the ornithopter cockpits are often lit up by green dials, etc. I kind of think of it as, if anybody's seen Excalibur, by the way, the John Boorman film, it's my favorite movie. If you ever look at the lighting in that film, the ethereal greenness that's kind of meant to be the dragon, if you like. I always got that kind of thing. She backed away from him into a corner, crouched and drew her knife. The green jewels of its handle flashed in the light from the window. Leto merely continued his advance, hands empty, but spread and ready. Alia lunged with the knife. Leto leaped almost to the ceiling, struck with his left foot. It caught Alia's head a glancing blow and sent her sprawling with a bloody mark on her forehead. She lost her grip on the knife and it skidded across the floor. Alia scrambled after the knife, but found Leto standing in front of her. Alia hesitated, called up everything she knew of Bene Gesserit training. She came up off the floor, body loose and poised. Once more, Leto advanced upon her. I was wondering a little bit about this kind of the action with Alia here as well, because she's meant to have put on an awful lot of weight, hasn't she? Pardon me. That she's meant to be the last time I think we heard her physicality described, I believe we heard the word colossal used. I'm just wondering, is it just simply that the ability to control the body is that much, or is it possibly Frank forgetting a little bit about the changes to the character? Possibly as part of the problems of writing something like this over such a period of time. I don't know. Yeah, she came up off the floor, body loose and poised. Once more, Leto advanced upon her. Alia fainted to the left, but her right shoulder came up and her right foot shot out in a toe-pointing kick, which could disembowel a man if it struck precisely. Deadly toes are a thing in these books, aren't they? Paul's the first person that Paul ever kills, I believe it's with his little toe. Leto caught the blow on his arm, grabbed the foot, and picked her up by it, swinging her around his head. The speed with which he swung her sent a flapping, hissing sound through the room as her robe beat against her body. The others ducked away. Alia screamed and screamed, but still she continued to swing around and around and around. Presently, she fell silent. Slowly, Leto reduced the speed of her whirling, dropped her gently to the floor. She lay in a panting bundle. Leto bent over her. I could have thrown you through a wall, he said. Perhaps that would have been best, but we're not at the center of the struggle. You deserve your chance. And I've written next that, yes, she does. Alia's eyes darted wildly from side to side. I have conquered those inner lives, Leto said. Look at Gani. She, too, can. Ganima interrupted. Alia, I can show you. No! The word was wrenched from Alia. Her chest heaved and voices began to pour from her mouth. They were disconnected, cursing, pleading. You see? Why didn't you listen? And again, why are you doing this? What's happening? And another voice, stop them! Make them stop! Jessica covered her eyes, felt Faradin's hands steady her. Still, Alia raved. I'll kill you! Hideous curses erupted from her. I'll drink your blood! The sounds of many languages began to pour from her, all jumbled and confused. I made a wee note there that kind of reminded me of the Demon Legion from the Bible. You know, all these different personalities here. I'll kill you. Hideous curses erupt from her. I'll drink your blood. The sounds of many languages began to pour from her, all jumbled and confused. The huddled guards in the outer passage made the sign of the worm, then held clenched fists beside their ears. She was possessed. Leto stood, shaking his head. He stepped to the window and with 3 swift blows shattered the supposedly unbreakable crystal-reinforced glass from its frame. Pardon me. A sly look came over Alia's face. Jessica heard something like her own voice come from that twisting mouth, a parody of Bene Gesserit control. All of you, stay where you are. Jessica, lowering her hands, found them damp with tears. And again, as much as she's an Atreides, she's been amongst the Fremen for long enough that she's genuinely upset here, but it could also be seen as giving water to the dead to her daughter, who is possibly seen as already being dead. We get a wee bit of cosmic horror almost with this, don't we? I think the nature of abomination and the possession. It is a wee bit spooky and a wee bit freaky. It kind of reminds you of things like The Exorcist, that kind of stuff, doesn't it? Jessica, lowering her hands, found them damp with tears. Alia rolled to her knees, lurched to her feet. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I am? I've written the wrong word down there. Hang on. Or have I? Hang on. Yeah, that's my mistake. Don't you know who I am? That's one of those great cliches, isn't it? I remember when I was a kid, we used to play Dungeons and Dragons role-play games a lot, and any time you were dressing up, and taking uniforms off somebody and trying to infiltrate a place in disguise. If you got questioned, it was we'd always, as a kid, we'd always go with it. Don't you know who I am? And try to blag your way out of it. It's one of those things that you could say to people, and it generally is going to backfire on you no matter what. And the worst, I suppose, don't you know who I am? No. is generally kind of a deflating answer to that question, isn't it? But it's the self-importance of the Baron, I suppose, of Alia coming through, or really of the Baron. Don't you know who I am? She demanded. It was her old voice. Oh, I'll read that again, actually. And Lil, don't you know who I am? Ah, pays the read ahead. She demanded. It was her old voice, the sweet and lilting voice of the youthful Alia, who was no more. Why are you all looking at me that way? She turned pleading eyes to Jessica. Mother, make them stop it. So we get the sense that the Baron's kind of using the, trying to pretend to be a very young Alia here, work on their heartstrings a bit. Jessica only shake her head from side to side, consumed by the ultimate horror. All of the old Bene Gesserit warnings were true. She looked at Leto and Gani standing side by side near Alia. What did those warnings mean for those poor twins? And this must be hard for her. She's just watched her son die, and now she's watching her other child, Alia, uh, consumed by what? Demons, multiple personalities, madness, the ultimate horror. Grandmother, Leto said, and there was pleading in his voice. Must we have a trial of possession? In other words, that we can give her an out here. This is, by the way, in this entire chapter, up until the very end, I've written that up until a certain point, I referred to the character of Alia slash the Baron. There's a point in it where I actually just call it the Baron, and then a point where I see Alia back, I think. It's just coming up. Must we have a trial of possession? Who are you to speak of trial? Alia asked, and her voice was that of a querulous man, an autocratic and sensual man, far gone in self-indulgence. It's the Baron. Both Leto and Ganima recognized the voice, the old Baron Harkonnen. Ganima heard the same voice begin to echo in her own head, but the inner gate closed and she sensed her mother standing there. That's Baron number 3, by the way. So again, Chani is acting as a guardian for Ganima within her mind. Jessica remains silent. Then the decision is mine, Leto said, and the choice is yours, Alia. Trial of possession or... He nodded toward the open window. Sorry, that wasn't very subtle, was it? Or the window. Nudge, nudge. Sorry. I'll read that again. Then the decision is mine, Leto said, and the choice is yours, Alia. Trial of possession or... He nodded toward the open window. Here are you to give me a choice, Alia demanded, and it was still the voice of the old Baron. Demon! Ganima screamed. Let her make her own choice. Mother, Alia pleaded in her little girl tones. Mother, what are they doing? What do you want me to do? Help me. Oh, he's a cat, isn't he, the old Baron? Piece of work. Help yourself, Leto ordered, and for just an instant, he saw the shattered presence of his aunt. He saw the shattered presence of his aunt in her eyes, a glaring hopelessness which peered out at him and was gone. But her body moved, a stick-like thrusting walk. She wavered, stumbled, veered from her path, but returned to it, nearer and nearer the open window. And that to me is, this is the bit that I think where people have always, we were talking about Duncan Idaho saying she's gone, all of these kind of things. Alia is no longer there. The problem with all of that is that she always has been there. And that's the real tragedy of her, a part of it as well, as much as we've been talking about it. I've always kind of figured this with her, and that's why she hasn't gone, and she has never been totally gone. She is a victim here. She's a prisoner. She's been trapped there, but she wasn't utterly destroyed by the Baron and the multitude. Part of her is still there, and this is the part of her that's fighting back. This is Alia's last act, is to regain her agency in some level, just over her own body, to take it away from this man, and to by putting, to put an end to him and to her misery, I suppose. It's a final act, and we get the Baron raging against the dying of the light, if you like, for a moment here. Now the voice of the old Baron raged from her lips. Stop! Stop it, I say! I command you! Stop it! Feel this! Alia clutched her head, stumbled closer to the window. She had the sill against her thighs then, but the voice still raved. Don't do this! Stop it, and I'll help you. I have a plan. Listen to me. Stop it. I say, wait! But Alia pulled her hands away from her head, clutched her broken casement. In one jerking motion, she pulled herself over the sill and was gone. Not even a screech came from her as she fell. In the room, they heard the crowd shout, the sudden thump as Alia struck the steps far below. Leto looked to Jessica. We told you to pity her. Jessica turned and buried her face in Farad'n's tunic. There we go. That's what a chapter. It is climactic. It's not quite the end of the book, as I said. Because of that, it'll make the book a little bit anticlimactic with the next couple of chapters. But there's more to come. But it's a brilliant chapter. All of our threads are the various different types of plans coming together. We even see the Baron and Alia. Baron/Alia trying to adapt to a change in the plan there. Their plan goes to hell. Jessica's plan's gone to hell. Farad'n's plan's gone to hell. The Preacher's plan's gone to hell. Whose plan isn't really working? It's Ganima and Leto's. And when she checks in on how did the plan work, well enough, I believe is the answer. Good enough. It'll do. As they say, no plan as it survives contact with the enemy. An awful lot of references within there, religious references. And most importantly, our two major characters from the Great Dune trilogy, the two sides of the Janus aspect, Alia Atreides and Paul Atreides, Artemis and Apollo, the son, the children of Leto, children of Jessica, are both dead in this chapter. And as the, there we go. By the way, Alia, I haven't colored her in yet. There we go. I'll put Alia's skull there. I think I've given her a little one there just to indicate that's where it happened. But we've got Alia Atreides, Paul Atreides. Alia dies here by death by auto-defenestration, which is a word we don't get to say often enough. That is throwing yourself out of a window. Paul killed by a knife in his chest. Both these great Atreides individuals, these unusual beings, and again, they're both dead below in the plaza. It's not Paul's murdered down below, his body broken. Her body has gone to join him. And the one other thing I thought I'd really like to point out is in relation to Alia is that she kills the Baron again. She gets to kill the Baron again to save the day. And I think the really sad thing about this, of course, is the death of Alia. Everything that's happened to her. The tragedy of this plays out on a number of different levels, I suppose, but ultimately we have a mother looking at the premature death of two of her children. She's outlived her children, whose very existence has caused so much death and destruction and problems. We get the real sense of Alia's tragedy here, I think, because in this final moment, despite what other people have said, Arthur, we know she's there. The narrator tells us so. She's still there. She's been a prisoner. She's a victim. The Harkonnens pretty much, the Baron got her through eventually, but she eventually escaped and freed herself of him. And her death here is a freedom, and it's also she kills the Baron again. She's rid everybody of this old monster. The interesting thing to realize, as much as we see that the kind of starting off of another Baron here within Ganima, there should be one inside Leto as well. So technically, there's a couple more versions of the Baron still alive, or with another memory, if you like. And it really is, I suppose, the nature of the I don't know what happens to Alia. Uh, is almost all of it's her mother's fault. Um, and we understand way back that the reason for taking the water of life we know about, but there would have been no problem delaying that choice because of her pregnancy. She decides to hide it, but that's the nature of the truth of it, is that she could have delayed her taking the water of life, if you like, and spared Alia this all of this that's happened here. At the same time, what compounds the tragedy here is that you have both Leto II and Ganima offering her a solution to this, a way out, a cure, and they're different solutions as well. Both Ganima and Leto, in their own ways, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how Leto does it in the following chapters, but have dealt with the problem of abomination, have overcome it, if you like. So I've always said Alia is one of my all-time favorite characters within the Dune series. She is extremely tragic, I think. My sympathies have always remained with her. And in this book, she's pretty much our villain, but it's not her. And that's the hard thing to wrap our heads around, these two characters. We've come to the end of our journey with Paul Atreides. He is dead, setting up his son for them to be the next emperor, etc. And it's a moment in the books, I think, for us. It's a there's a lot in this chapter. We also know that Stilgar and Irulan are in prison. That Bureau Garvey's has done a lot's happened in the background, and it's particularly tragic for both of these characters dead. We also have Jessica having to deal with this. And I suppose ultimately the consequences of her actions all those years ago in giving birth to a boy instead of a girl. Yeah. And interestingly enough, if we see with Ganima and Leto here that the consequences, that she could have avoided all of it by putting in a little bit of lateral thinking way back at the start of Dune. It's a bit like the ring being chucked into the Mount Doom by the Eagles. She could have just had twins, one boy and one girl, and everybody would have been happy. But there we go. And let me just catch up with your comments, folks. Oh, hang on, half a minute sounds approximately. Let me back up a bit. Let's see where we get to. Both what a great chapter, so much coming to a head here, very exciting. Flaccid, even all around a good part, yes indeed. Bojack, Harkness saying half a metric ton is approximately 1,102 pounds. Okay, random. That's a random bit of knowledge for the day. Bojack, thank you. So this in my text has clutched the broken casement. Let's have a look. What did mine say? Easement, didn't it? Oh, bear with me a second. Broken casement. Yeah, one way. Thank you. Let me just check that. Yeah, you've got. My text has clutched the broken casement. I think I need to get new glasses. I think. Clutched her broken casement. You've got the broken casement. Ah, right. So I misread that. I thought that said easement there for a minute. That's my. Yeah, I really do need new glasses. Haven't bothered with these. Thank you very much. Yeah, clutched the broken casement instead of her broken casement. Yeah, I've got her in my book. I think the makes more sense there, though. Thank you. Something saying Alia dies just steps away from Paul on the Temple Square. That's it. Yeah, when her jumping out down below, he's down there. Yes, indeed. Both the Atreides children, dead here, and it's as I was saying, it's when we lost Paul, it's one half of the Janus aspect. We've got another Janus aspect coming up. We had to lose Alia here too. It was if we kind of understand Frank's thinking within this, it was inevitable, wasn't it? I suppose both Paul and Alia redeem themselves here in their final acts, don't they? A little. And it does bring in lots of questions for us. Bojack said, feels crazy, dog. We've been coming here for years reading about these characters. Yeah, and rooting for them too. There are heroes, there are protagonists. The much maligned Atreides children per sons. So they said Alia is a favourite for me too. Yes, indeed. Mine has casement. Laughing out loud. My bad. Not to worry. That was me as well. Yeah, I really do need to get some new glasses soon. These are kind of what you call office glasses. So they've got three different for reading at close, books for a screen, and then for boards as well. So handy for tutoring. But yeah, there we go. It does it. It's both of Jessica's children die on the same day. In some ways, they redeem themselves. I wonder what. And Jessica's kind of crying into the arms of, I suppose, somebody else's child. If you like, her grandchildren are still here. But yeah, all the Bene Gesserit composure. I think all the training can't have her keeping it together any further. She turned and buried her face in Farad's tunic. It's utter desolation for her. This, I think, is utter tragedy. And we have both of these children dead. Both our heroes dead, and we kind of have to ask a few questions. Well, I think that Alia redeems herself. I think Alia escapes from the clutches of the Baron, and I think that everything that is done to Alia is because of the condition of her Jessica's pregnancy and what happens to her pre-birth. There's Jessica has to accept that ultimately what happens to Alia is the consequence of what Jessica does. It's a direct consequence of what she does. Choosing Paul, I suppose, ended up being the mother to exquisite Sadarak, to a pair of universal super beings. There's an awful lot of people dead because of these two. And I suppose the question is, did they really change anything? Look what's happened to the Fremen. There's a wee bit more to explore yet. But at this point, I suppose the way I'll do it is it's time for a wee bit of food for thought. And honestly, what do we think of Paul as a hero? And what do we think of Alia as a hero, by the way? What do we think? Leto's actions are very superhuman in this chapter, and they're to a level way beyond anything that Paul has done before, or Alia, certainly in terms of physicality. But I suppose the interesting thing for me is I get this as Paul trying to undo some of the damage, it's an act of redemption, or an attempted act of redemption, and it's to get to be a distraction as well for Leto. It's all part of a plan here that he can't see for once, and it results in his sacrifice, if you like, his murder by these priests who take a lot upon themselves, very much in the manner of Thomas Becket. And I suppose the question is, does he, because of if we think about all the little people in this universe, which I think we have to, and Frank also points out that a lot of this is about us as readers, etc. What do we think of Paul at the end? Is he a monster? Is he a hero? Does he redeem himself? Do you still find him to be the great hero that you were imprinted upon in the first Dune book? And again, I suppose the idea with Alia as well. And the answer for me, and I've said this before, in all honesty, is yes. That Paul Atreides, regardless of what Frank Herbert's trying to do, and again we have to use that word, these words, paradox, is that to me he still is admirable as a hero, and that there's some attempt to fix the problem, and in that sense he's a little bit Arthurian as well, I think. If you get that idea of the land and the king are one, if you like, what's happening to the land, that it needs regenerating. Leto's golden path is a bit similar to Arthur drinking from the Holy Grail, if you see what I mean. Regeneration. But so to me, he is. It's actually in the book, to be honest with you, where I lose most of my sympathy for Paul Atreides is in how he treats Chani and Jim Messiah. That's where I kind of respect for him. But then we have to understand that at the same time, he's not really there in many ways, as he's almost permanently in the trance vision, and in many ways a victim of the breeding program of the Bene Gesserit, the same way that his sister is a victim. There's very much running through the Dune series this idea that the sins of the father are the sins of the son, if you see what I mean. Oh, goodness gracious, I need fluids. Christopher I actually blame Paul for leaving her with the responsibility of the Empire without seeing to her the path. Yeah, it feels like there is an abandonment of Alia, as Christopher points out, and I really got that with hate with Duncan Idaho Gola, and this she's not there, she's gone. I weep for her. I'm away. This kind of thing. And each time we kind of hear that within the book, there's a strong suggestion that that's not true, that Alia is still there somehow, that she's being manipulated and controlled. And this last appearance of her within the eyes, just an instant, he saw the shattered presence of his aunt in her eyes, a glaring hopelessness which peered out at him and was gone. There is no hope. I'm going to sort this guy out. I think that's one last act of defiance, but it's her. She's there. She was there the whole time. And Duncan never saw it with all of his skill, with all his mental abilities, with all his Zen Sunni philosophy. People didn't see her in there. And that's the thing, I suppose. Again, I'm reading this. It's been a good while since I've read this. I could always see Alia there. I could always see her struggling, the victim, if you know what I mean, still there somehow, being buried by the evil that is the Baron Harkonnen. As much as the Baron Harkonnen can be amusing as a character sometimes, but he's a completely evil shit. To put the bottom line, Christopher saying he just noped out and walked out to the desert, leaving Alia to deal with his mess. It's the running away. It's that act of cowardice. It's kind of a bit like the Han Solo clearing off in Star Wars, isn't it? Rocky Rito and Hidden Fortress, only to clear off and look sort of selfish, only to come back at the last moment. It's like that Lancelot moment as well. It's Lancelot. He's come back to us. This kind of thing, Yeah. Walked out in the desert, leaving Alia to deal with his mess. That's it. It's just off I go. Woe is me, self-pity, and not really much of a consideration about others. I think the fact that he has 2 children, that he just clears off from, kind of puts Paul Atreides not anywhere near a category of Father of the Year. If you it's not going to win that, Yeah, there's much to be said, but again, we can look at him partly as it's like a junkie, isn't it? He's on a permanent fix with these visions. I think that's the real problem with it, with Paul. It's almost an addiction, isn't it? But yeah, the part for me is really the things that he gets wrong through his visions, but fundamentally, and it's nice to see by the way, but how he treated Chani, I didn't like. That's the way I look at it. That's the major thing that I wouldn't certainly behave like that towards my wife or partner. I'd expect to get a good slap for it. It's just so it's because of the nature of the love story, if you like. I think Chani's love for Paul, I think as much as Paul's love for Chani is equal, I think at the beginning, I think it's a very imbalanced thing. I think Chani's love for Paul is much, much greater than his for her. And it's nice to see her in that kind of protecting her children in other memory as a loving kind of guardian that can keep the Baron Harkonnen in check. So it's nice that there is that kind of appearance of Chani within other memory as you're not getting past this one. You're not going to mess with my daughter. I'm Chani, and it kind of lines up with her personality, the way she has to fight the battles for Paul. Or the people who come along trying to attack Paul. She would deal with them. So they say, what does Paul's sermon tell us about this stage of the story? What is the purpose? Could the words have helped awaken the imprisoned Alia so that she could act before the end? A reach, I know. It's. I was wondering about that. Is it the choice is yours, Alia? The decision is mine, but the choice is yours, Alia. And I think that there's two paths there. And it's the question is the choice Alia's? But the choice is he is giving us. We'll put you on trial or commit. You could commit suicide. The Baron's certainly not going to do that. I think it gives her an opportunity to deal with the Baron, but it's a choice. And at that point, I don't think Leto would know which way it would go. What is the purpose? Could the words have helped awaken the imprisoned Alia? See, that's the thing. I think they've given her two choices here. Trial of possession. They both offer to help her, but the Baron's taking over. No, I think there would have been more options here. I would have had secure the aunt, get her into a chair, figure out, let's start doing some hypnosis, and we'll use one of these two techniques in the same way. They could have put her under deep kind of hypnosis, the way that Gannon was, I think. But I think it's possibly for the convenience of the Golden Path, Cynthia, that this is. But yes, I think there's a possibility. I'm going to go with, if that's what I get the sense that you're saying there, Cynthia. Could the words have helped awaken the imprisoned Alia so that she could act before the end? I think there would have been an option here. That I think she could have been saved somehow. There's certainly possibilities, Christopher Crisis gave her the responsibility for humanity without the tools to achieve it, leading her to overconsume spice and get taken over by the Baron. Cynthia St. Christopher agreed. People both overestimated Alia's abilities and underestimated them. She lost on both counts. Yeah, whatever that level of power that she has, we also get the sense that she's responsible for a lot of the killing within the jihad. And it makes us wonder at what point the Baron's been there. If you see, there's an awful lot of questions to ask, but we have to ultimately dial it back to the Alia that we know from Dune, the little girl. This little innocent, this little, why are they all scared of me, Mom? This kind of thing. That's the heartbreaker. That's the core of Alia. And we get to her in these different stages of her life, but we don't know when she's possessed. We don't know how long she's been a victim, or if it's a sort of gradual, slow process, or if it happened quickly, etc., etc. But we simply understand what's been done to her. And help yourself this last moment. No, they're not going to help us. She can't get help from these people. I think the only option out here for her is death, because it would probably drive her mad anyway, I think, Death is a release here for Alia, I think. And that again more just compounds the tragic nature of everything, Yeah, it's a fast moving, very interesting chapter, but it's filled with tragedy. It's kind of the chapter that you finish reading and you go, okay, I've still got a couple of more chapters to go, but yeah, that was Alia's dead, Paul's dead, and the fake Baron's dead. That's a big whammy, and it's very sad. I kept thinking, actually, by the way, I seem to remember thinking that was Alia's death something similar to. I was trying to remember whose it was, and I think I said Ophelia's from Hamlet, but Ophelia doesn't jump from a window. Ophelia drowns. Um, I don't think I was thinking on Lady Macbeth maybe as well, but I don't think we know how she dies. I think it's just done off screen or off stage, if you see what I mean. Um, yeah, and I suppose we have little aspects of the Theban myth within this as well. But both Paul and Alia dead at this point. We're not quite finished the book, but we have a one Janus aspect, one male-female Janus aspect of the Atreides having passed on this day, as the two new Janus aspects appear. One wearing his skin, his new second skin, the other dressed for a wedding. Leto and Ganima. Kwisatz Haderach's possibly as well. Yes, indeed. So yeah, it's a big thing within the book. I think it's a chapter that got me really thinking and always hammers home the impact of what's happened to Alia and the real tragedy of it. I was saying about, do we feel sympathy for Paul as our hero with all the lessons that Frank's trying to teach us within this book, and he's not done yet, by the way. This very dangerous hero. How do we feel about him? He's killed tens of billions of people, possibly hundreds of billions of people, and he's been helped by his sister here. Both of these people are dead. Both of them, by our standards today, are mass murderers. At the very least, it's the least thing you could say about them. But as Paul would point out to you, he doesn't kill these people himself. It's his legions that do it. So it's an interesting thing. How do we feel about these two characters? And the truth is, as I said, and it's an individual thing. Maybe we thing to be mulled over, for till next week. But when I get to this point in the book, I have retained my sympathy for Alia and still see her as a heroine here. And I have retained my sympathy for Paul Atreides and still see him as a hero here, or both as heroes, if you want to use that, just that single term. And that depends on what you think of a hero and what they are. But they're fundamentally associated with death, with a transition, with I suppose a liminal, how would we put it, a bridge between one form of life and the other. And for me, I suppose the interesting thing about Paul is that his empire didn't really seem much different than the one before it. It just seemed to have changed the drapes, if you like. It's different Fremen drapes instead of imperial drapes, but for want of a better term or analogy. Sorry, excuse me. But yeah, so it's a food for thought one for me, and I've come to this point in the book again, and I don't want to sit and ramble on about it too much, just because I really am still thinking about it. But that's my stance, as I would say that I'm still sympathetic to both of these characters. I've been rooting for them. I've been kind of rooting. The first time I read Children of Dune, I really was rooting for Alia to sort it all out, to get herself back and return as normal. Oh, ladies, hello. Got barky woof woofs outside. But there we go, folks. Yes, indeed. Well, listen, folks, it's just come up to 11:30. That's not been too bad. It's 2.5 hours for such a chapter. But I'm going to wrap up because my old throat's getting a wee bit sore. But food for thought for next time, folks. I'd love to know what you think about Paul and Ali at this point, having been on this journey with them. Yeah, we've been at this for over 3 years. And we're just about to come to the end. 2 more chapters to go. So a nice short one for me for next week after that. Oh, goodness gracious, of 6 pages, I think. And then our final chapter is 10 pages, which we'll do the next week. So that just remains for me to say, yeah, hopefully you can have a wee think about it, folks, and let me know what you think of how you feel about Paul and Alia as your heroes of the series, And I'll just sort of say goodnight from this point, and hopefully we'll be back on Thursday at we'll say 9 or 10 p.m. GMT +1 next week. So I think we're losing the GMT +1 soon. I'm not too sure when that is. Well, pardon me, but I'll let you know. But hopefully, we should be back on Thursday as normal. This was a lot of work, this chapter, so that's why it took me into Friday night tonight. And then we'll have, yeah, one more chapter to go after that, you know. Thanks, Doc, and all. Thank you, Cynthia, as always. Bojack, take care. Thank you guys as well for checking the text and everything. All your comments and questions. It's been great. What a great chapter. I shall leave you with a bit of food for thought, folks. We'll see you next week. All the very best. Take care. No matter where you are, look after yourselves and a good night. All the best. Bye bye.